Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Gen AI Meetup podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Shashank, dialing in from a remote island in the middle of the Indian Ocean off the coast of Madagascar in Seychelles. And I have my co-host, Mark, join with me on the mainland in the US, is somewhere in Ohio, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, that's
Today we
right.
have Sweet. So today we have a couple announcements that we'd like to talk about. The new first consumer grade robot that you can buy, not quite today, but soon, delivery starting next year. Couple updates with OpenAI and Nvidia in terms of massive valuations. Nvidia at a $5 trillion valuation and OpenAI reportedly in talks to IPO at a $1 trillion valuation. That would be like some insane numbers. But let's kick it off with Neo, the new robot from 1X. They have like this fuzzy, cute robot in a you know sweater knit kind of a fabric coating, which costs $20,000 to buy outright or $500 a month to rent. And it is supposed to be able to do anything that you'd want done around the house in terms of errands, folding your clothes, doing laundry, washing the dishes, etc. But in reality, there have been a couple of reviews with people who have tried it out in person, and it seems like it's not able to do a whole lot today, but is claiming to be able to do a lot next year. And what it does today is actually have someone teleoperate it and do those things remotely with a human operating it from somewhere else. What do you think about it, Mark?
I think it's super exciting that we are going to have as early as next year. I mean, sure, they were a little bit um, suspicious in their wording, saying they said 2026. So I assume this means probably December 31st, 2026. But still, like within about a year, we're gonna have a humanoid robot that we can use, and that is incredibly exciting. And I would give them the benefit of the doubt to say, like, hey, look, yeah, it's not ideal that the robot can do everything. Like, ideally it would be able to cook for you, wash your windows, do your yard work all autonomously. But, these things take time, right? And there will be people behind the scenes, but I think that's okay, right? Because there's a big difference between somebody working in an office somewhere around the world doing your dishes versus somebody physically having to drive to your house and bring all the gear and then do the work, right? So it's like you could pay somebody in a cheaper country to help teleoperate the robot. You could go and somebody could avoid the commute to your house. Like you could have to make sure you have all the things you need there. So I think like even if this was like 100% teleoperated robot, that would be okay with me because like it would still actually, I think, save time and effort. And also people could avoid getting dirty, stuff like that, right? So it's like, yard work, whatever, you have to go and then shower after like that. Now somebody could do the teleoperations from the comfort of their own home, mow your like cut your lawn, like pull the weeds, whatever. And we could have it where like they don't have to leave their house, and then they could just quickly switch from robot to robot to robot and go and help clean up each individual house. And then over time the AI will get good enough where it could do it autonomously. But I don't know, I like this. I think this is cool. This is going to give jobs to people who can operate the robot, and then eventually the people won't need to work those menial jobs again, and we could just have the robots helping us out while we chill.
Yeah, over here at the Gen AI podcast, we are very bullish on the future, and we've talked about robotics a couple times. Figure AI is one of the other prominent players in the space. They're focused on the enterprise use case, which I think is a lot easier to control the variables and deliver consistent performance. But I think this is going to be a lot more challenging. However, I think they're the first ones to do it. So looking at some of their funding, they have some prominent members like the OpenAI Startup Fund. We have Samsung Next, and a bunch of other investors. So they have a lot of money, they have a lot of backing, and it seems like they're close. And the approach that they're taking is similar to Tesla. So with Tesla's autopilot, they released it to everyone all over the world, and it wasn't great in the beginning. They claimed autopilot, but that was really not the case. And they're kind of backtracking on the claims of full self-driving now. But essentially, it's a very similar approach. Not that you have humans controlling the Tesla robot, but they're deploying this product in the field, getting a lot of data in order to then train the model in the backend and make it better. And compared to some of the other self-driving companies, they have, if I'm not mistaken, the most amount of training data in the world for self-driving. Whereas Waymo, Cruise, and some of the other companies, they were geofenced and they were only collecting data in some cities, or some other test locations that we're not aware of, augmenting it with synthetic data. And so if you think about the humanoid robots, they're probably doing something similar. They're augmenting it with synthetic data in virtual environments. I know they're using Nvidia's platform for computing and running Nvidia's local processing chip in their humanoid robots. And to train that, they're probably using synthetic data to train on millions of hours of actions that these robots are taking in a virtual environment, and also augmenting it with real world data with either physical operators, or running the algorithms with the synthetic data, and deploying that in the real world. But once you have one in your home, I would imagine this would only keep getting better. And I am really excited. I think the prospect of having a $20,000, like owning it outright, is a massive value to those who consider their time worth more than this. So if you think about high net worth individuals, doctors, lawyers, or even some of the engineers in the Bay Area, to trade this amount of money for time, so they don't have to do a bunch of errands, chores around the house, I think that would be very appealing to a lot of people, especially early adopters. So this is super cool. Very excited to actually see people demo this and see what kind of things it's capable of in the coming months.
So Shashank, which one do you think you would get? Do you think you'd get the $500 a month or just a one-time payment of 20 grand?
See, as much as I love the idea of this, I feel like the version 2 is going to be better, and there's going to be a lot of competition in this space very quickly. I have purchased early versions of some other products, although it was nowhere close to $20,000. It was, I think it was $100 Rabbit R1 little device that can answer questions for you, and that was a complete dud. The Humane AI pin, I didn't buy it, but I had a friend working for that company. Was worth $800, and that company is completely dissolved. So, not that I'm saying this won't be a good product, but I would want to wait. So I'd be curious to try out the subscription for $500 a month.
Yeah, I feel like there'll probably be a lot of people who get the $500 a month subscription and then cancel after 1 month. I mean, I don't know. I hate to say it because I think that this robot has a lot of potential, but I think this is an incredibly difficult problem to solve, right? Like, it's one thing for a computer to play a board game, right? It's one thing to play chess, poker, whatever. It's a whole nother thing for it to do all of your household tasks, right? Like, so if I understand the human brain, a really large percentage of the human brain is not something that is geared towards movement, right? So it's like a lot of the things that we find difficult as humans, right? Like math and reasoning and logic are actually fairly like easy things for a computer to do. Whereas like, going and tying your shoes is incredibly challenging for a computer and or a robot, right? Like the hand is so beautifully designed and built, and it has literally billions of years of evolution behind it. And if these companies take, a couple of years to recreate that, that is blazing fast compared to the billions of years of, flailing around with evolution. So these things take time. And just the fact that so much of the brain is just um, allocated for movement and movement alone makes you realize like how challenging of a problem this really is. So yeah, it's going to take some time. And I think in 5 years, these robots are going to be way better. But the fact that we're going to have like V0 or V1 coming next year, incredibly exciting. And then, so Shashank, you also mentioned that this is all going to be powered by Nvidia. So Nvidia has been in the news a little bit too lately.
Nvidia has. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but they've been on this rocket ship trajectory with no signs of slowing down. They're the first company to hit a $5 trillion valuation. That's just like ridiculous numbers. That is way more than the GDP of several countries combined. And we've had a couple discussions about these massive valuations of AI hardware companies, specifically in the semiconductor space. But I think it makes perfect sense. I think the usage of AI keeps going up. And ever since we first started this podcast, and even before that, when we started the meetup, we were like, who are going to be the biggest beneficiaries of this AI race? It's going to be the people making shovels. And NVIDIA is the biggest shovel maker. They are entrenched in this entire AI ecosystem with partnerships across the stack. And everyone is optimizing their models to work well on NVIDIA hardware. So I think it's going to keep continuing from here.
Yeah,
Actually, before that, you convinced me, and I made a pre-order to the Neo One robot for $500 a month. Put down a $200 refundable deposit. So fingers crossed. I'm excited for this one, and we'll do a review once I get it.
that's exciting. Yeah, I mean, it's only $500, right? You can just get it for a month, cancel, and then return it. It's fine. It's fine. They're a Bay Area company, anyways. I'm sure returns will be easy. So yeah, going back to the Nvidia thing, I have to admit that I was wrong, right? So I thought that Nvidia would be crashed by now. Like I thought that, we'd be seeing like a $60, $70 Nvidia. Like I was saying that, probably a year ago, thinking like, man, this bubble can't just keep going. But it really feels like the bubble just keeps on getting bigger. And who knows, maybe it'll be the bubble that won't pop. I don't know. I mean, I say that and I think like it definitely will pop, but um, I think that these things can last a lot longer than you think. I am mostly concerned about the circular nature of the Nvidia deals, where it seems like Nvidia is increasing its valuation based off of promises of future purchases and investment. And I think what I'm worried about is if the demand doesn't keep up, or if the profits just aren't there for the companies. Because I think I remember looking last time that the only about 3% of people using these LLMs are like paying for them. Like the other 97% of people using the LLMs are sure consuming them a lot, but they're not directly paying for them. So I think that a lot of companies are really subsidizing the free users. And I think that for now, it's okay for them to subsidize the free users. But I think the thing I'm worried about is this, right? Like, if a lot of the current Nvidia valuation is at $5 trillion right now due to future cash flow injections and things that like data centers that people will build in 2026, 2027, whatever, that they promise to pay within the next few years. Like, if that demand dries up, or if these companies decide like, hey, you know what, like we don't want to actually be spending, $5 billion on a new data center for users who aren't going to give us like more money for that. Like, I'm just worried that the economic incentive won't be there. And then it's like, once one of these contracts blows up, there might be some sort of like unwinding of all the circularness of this economy. Because it's like, okay, like, oh, Nvidia loses one contract and then now they can't pay for another contract, and then which means like some other company can't give its funding, and then the whole thing unwinds. And that's what I'm worried about. And I feel like it could happen very quickly, where just some executive says like, hey, look, we're not going to build this data center. And then it just takes one or two of those executives to say like, hey, we're not going to build this, for the whole thing to unwind. Just because like, I feel like the profit isn't there. Like, yeah, I'm with you. Like, for sure, like the usage is going up, my usage is going up, my spend is going up, but I don't know if I'm representative of everybody, because like I know a lot of people who are using this heavily but have never given these companies a single cent. So that is what I'm mostly concerned about.
Yeah, I hear you. So to address some of your points, I do think there's a lot of paying customers. I get that we are on the bleeding edge, but I'm here out in the middle of the ocean on a tiny island, and I'm talking to people who have subscriptions to multiple LLM providers. So there are a lot of people, mostly consumers, who are paying for personal subscriptions of ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic, whatever. The enterprise ROI has been a little not something that has materialized as companies had hoped. It seems like the investments into AI that enterprises have made have not yielded as much profit as they'd hoped, and there's been a lot of reports of this. But we've talked about this a little bit, that this was the year of agents, and this was the year that we finally saw a proliferation of AI tools in enterprises developing actual concrete use cases. So I still think it is early in the AI adoption in businesses, and they're still trying to figure out what generates actual revenue, actual profits, outside of coding agents, which seems to be the most popular use case. To address your concerns about Nvidia being in this bubble territory where one deal falling through would end up in the collapse of this entire web of circular funding, that is a legitimate concern. There have been a lot of articles, especially in the past month or so, that have been talking about this problem of circular funding. So I shared this chart earlier, but Bloomberg released a really good graph about how much money is flowing back and forth between Nvidia. So back when they wrote this article, Nvidia was still at 4.5 trillion. Now they're at 5. And there's so much money flowing back and forth. They invested up to $100 billion in OpenAI, which then agrees to spend 300 billion with Oracle, and Oracle then ends up buying tens of billions of Nvidia chips. Same thing is happening with Microsoft. They're investors in OpenAI, but then also buying Nvidia, which is then an investor in OpenAI, and then OpenAI decides to deploy AMD chips. and then buys, I think, a 10% stake in AMD. So there's a lot of money going back and forth, but the benefit of Nvidia having so much money and such a massive valuation is like they're intentionally doing this to support this entire ecosystem. In every interview that Jensen Huang has done, he keeps saying that he regrets not investing more in these companies. And I get that he's just trying to hype this entire ecosystem because it benefits him. But the fact that he's investing in all these ancillary businesses like CoreWeave, which I guess makes the supporting infra for all these data centers, it allows Nvidia to prop up their suppliers, their vendors, their partners, so that if there's one deal that falls through, the entire company won't collapse. And ChatGPT keeps growing. I think the number of people using AI products keeps increasing. I think we're figuring out a pricing model. There've also been really good YouTube videos about how to price AI products, because this is, before 2 years ago, we never conceived that you would pay tens, if not hundreds of dollars for a software subscription. The one thing that people paid for was Adobe, and that was like a niche group of professional designers or creatives. Apart from that, like no one would have paid tens of dollars for a software as a subscription. Software was thought to be cheap. The only people paying for it were like enterprise customers who were making legitimate money. But now everyone is paying money for software, and the pricing models are still being. I think they're being developed faster now. Anthropic has switched to more tight usage limits. We had a couple different companies at our last meetup event, and Augment Code talked about how they switched to a pay-per-use pricing model. Initially, they got a lot of flack for it on Twitter because everyone was like, "Oh, now I can't use your product if I pay $20 a month." But it's not realistic for a company to spend a lot of money on LLM credits and offer it at a subsidized cost to the user. So we're seeing the pricing also get becoming more mature. So I feel like this industry is stabilizing, and Nvidia's kind of at the heart of it.
Yeah, I really, really hope that this is the bubble that just won't pop, right? Because I think that what makes this AI bubble slightly different from the dot-com bubble is that in the dot-com bubble, a lot of these companies did not have real idea. I mean, I'd say they had like real ideas, but the profits just weren't there. And I think what's quite a bit different about the companies now is these are the hyperscalers, right? These are your Googles, your Amazons, your Nvidias, your Teslas. These are the biggest and best and literally most successful companies that the world has ever seen in the history of time. And they're operated at a scale that companies 200 years ago or 100 years ago, even like 50 years ago, could not have even dreamed of, right? Like the size of these companies, like these companies have literally billions of people using their services, and their wealth and impact around the world is like literally kind of like infinite. Like it's almost as big as it possibly can be. So I think that like a lot of the mindset that we have for like older like companies of the past don't really apply to the age of AI, right? Like let's take Ford for example, right? Like Ford, when they made cars in the past, they could only like you had to ship like a big car to a user, right? Like you had to make the car in the factory, you had to go and then mine the materials from the ground to make them into steel and get the rubber and make the tires and put them all together in a factory in Detroit. And then like, you're not gonna be able to ship that car to China. I mean, maybe you could, but like realistically, like you're gonna probably be selling that to a local market and big people in North America, right? And that there would employ, you know, tens of thousands of people all working in the assembly line making cars. But now with AI, you could have like 3 developers in Palo Alto make something and then sell it to a billion people just over the internet. Like the scale and the profit of this AI is just wild how much it is. And assuming it's true, like assuming that we will see AGI, whatever that means, in like, let's say 10 years. And if that is the last invention that ever needs to be made, like this could just be the infancy. Like I know it's already really big, but for the total economic impact that we could be seeing, this could be a drop in the bucket. It could get a lot bigger. I mean, this could literally be the bubble that never pops. It just keeps going, and we see exponential growth. And in a couple of years, we're all just like, flying our rocket ships to the moon for vacation, right? Like that's a possibility, and I don't want to rule that out. Like I am a little bit bearish on the profit margin, but I don't want people to think that I'm not bullish on this. Like I think that this could literally be the last invention ever made, and we're just going to see like a world of prosperity and abundance. And also like these companies, they're like the hyperscalers. They can afford to spend on GPUs, right? Like Amazon can afford to spend, a few $1 billion, a few tens of billions of dollars on GPUs. It's fine. Like they're worth trillions of dollars. They can afford it, right? And I mean, unfortunately, Amazon just did a bunch of layoffs yesterday, which is unfortunate. But now they can take that savings and buy more GPUs. So it's like they can do it. They can do it. And I don't want to make light of the layoffs. I'm really sad, and the heart goes out to the families. But I think the reason they're probably doing things like this is so they can save the money on employees and buy GPUs and replace them with AI. And it's not good for like necessarily the average person, but these companies, if they're able to lay off people and buy GPUs and then throw it back into AI, they're going to get a lot more bigger, and the profits are just going to get, like the PE ratios are lower and the profits will get bigger, and this bubble could just keep going for another 20 years, maybe even longer. I mean, I don't know. Watch, I say this, the market's going to crash tomorrow, but we'll see. We'll see. I don't know. It's exciting.
Yeah, speaking of hyperscalers, I do think that the biggest beneficiaries of this AI race are the chip makers, the Nvidias, and some of the other companies that are part of this ecosystem, like TSMC and ASML. I don't see the hyperscalers benefit as much as Nvidia, because the GPUs are becoming a commodity. Everyone has to price the rentals of these GPUs at a similar price point, and so there's not that much of a differentiator, and so the margins are pretty slim. Not to say that Amazon isn't making money; they're making a ton of money. But if you look at the growth, they haven't grown like not even a fraction of what Nvidia has grown in the last 5 years. So, in terms of hyperscalers, I think Google might be a better position, because we make our own chips. We make the cloud infra and the models. So I think they're able to benefit a little bit better from AI products by owning the entire stack. But moving on to one of the
one thing, Amazon actually makes its own chips too.
Yeah,
they make a lot of chips. Like actually, a lot of the Claude models are trained on Amazon's chips, not Nvidia. They're using like the Trainium from Amazon. Amazon is actually like the 30,000 pound gorilla in the corner of the room that does everything. And yeah, they make chips. They make a lot of chips,
I'm
but they
curious
also
how
do much.
good they, yeah,
How
I'm
good they
curious
are?
how good they are at making chips because anytime I read blogs from Semi-Analysis, the one of the most popular um, analysis research teams that surveys the entire semiconductor landscape, they talk about Nvidia and they talk about the Google's TPUs. I I know that Nvidia makes their own chips. I mean, even Microsoft is trying to make their own chips, but I think they might be a little bit farther behind, um, and they may not be as profitable or as performant as NVIDIA's and TPUs.
Well, I think that the main difference between Amazon's chips and Nvidia chips is you're not going to be able to just go out and put Amazon's chips into your own data center. Like you'd have to use Amazon's chips through AWS. So I think like the chips are pretty good. It's just a lot of people don't think about it because like unless you are going and like you're using AWS, you're probably not even going to consider them, right? Like if you're making your own data center, you're not going to buy it. But if you're a company that is on AWS and you want to have the most cost performant chip and save money within the AWS ecosystem. Now the AWS ecosystem is very expensive, but like if you're already paying that, like this is a way to get a good cost performance and save a little bit of money within AWS itself. So I'd say the chips are good. They're just like um not I mean they're no Nvidia, right? But they are actually really solid chips, I think.
Awesome. Moving on to one of the biggest companies that is at the heart of this entire AI ecosystem, OpenAI is planning on IPOing at a $1 trillion valuation. And I think they just completed the transition to a for-profit company. Um, the details are a little bit tricky. I think they made a blog post on their website explaining how much of the public company, the how much of the for-profit company that the nonprofit owns. And I think it's about 130 billion or so, some double-digit percentage. Um, Whereas I think Microsoft owns like almost a half, 49% or something close to that amount. Now with Nvidia owning like 100 billion, so it's like a lot of different companies are going to benefit from this IPO. But I'm curious to see who'll have like some of the biggest ROIs because the the valuation last year, and full disclosure, I invest in a lot of these companies. I own a lot of Nvidia, TSMC, some robotics companies, and also OpenAI. And I think the valuation that I got in at is not going to make that much return once it IPOs because it was already close to $500 billion earlier this year and last year. Um, so, I think the biggest beneficiary is going to be OpenAI itself because now they'll have the ability to raise even more funds in the public markets. So anytime they want to build new data centers or build their own chip or get more compute, they can just release more shares and build the next version of GPT 6, 7, whatever have you.
So just that one correction, Microsoft now because of dilution. I know SoftBank invested a bunch of money, but Microsoft now owns 27% of OpenAI, which is, I mean, at $1 trillion is still a lot of money. I mean, that's $270 billion, but it's not $490 billion. So, they'll get slightly less of a big payday. And also what's interesting about the contract of OpenAI becoming a public benefit corporation, or basically just like they're not a nonprofit anymore. They have it where they made some deals with California where they agreed to not leave California, because I guess there was some veiled threats before where Sam Altman was saying like, hey, California, like I could just leave, and then I guess they did some negotiations with the government, and they said like, all right, we're not going to leave, and we're going to be here, stay in San Francisco, and continue to pay the high taxes. So I guess win for California. They prevented a company that was founded there from leaving, and also it seems like a lot of this deal that they have with Microsoft, they have an AGI clause where all bets are off if OpenAI achieves AGI. So this has been there for a while, and they have it. They mentioned in the blog post that if an expert panel, an independent expert panel, declares that OpenAI has achieved AGI, then all bets are off, and then I think this contract will need to be renegotiated in that case. Now, exactly what is AGI? I don't know if anybody has any idea, but I think we may be a long way off, but it maybe also come soon. But who knows? I don't know. I think that the definition is too fuzzy. But once that expert panel decides that OpenAI has achieved it, whatever that means, then all bets are off, and we'll see what happens. But yeah, I don't know if there's like a ton to say about this, but yeah, I mean, good on OpenAI, I guess. You're now a for-profit company.
So one of the announcements that came in before this financial announcement was their new browser. So we talked about a couple of the AI browsers in previous episodes, but OpenAI finally has their own browser. And it was funny. A lot of people are making fun of the announcement because they were like, you know what, we just didn't want to copy existing browsers. We want to make something from the ground up. And they just ended up forking Chromium. So it seems like most companies, including Cursor, just fork existing open source tools like VS Code, which is a popular code editor. And so OpenAI forked the most popular browser, which is open source, which is Chromium, which is like the foundation for Chrome. So Chrome, part of Google, adds a bunch of other bells and whistles on top of the open source browser. And this is kind of like something that benefits everyone, because the more open standards you have, the more consistent of an environment the average third-party developer has to build on top of it. So I think this is great for everyone, like in terms of the general population, but this is going to be a massive competitor for Chrome. Given that I think the customer base of OpenAI is reaching a billion users, billion monthly active users or something. And if they can get a portion of that converted to using ChatGPT Atlas, which is their new browser, this is going to be like a massive blow to Chrome and Google.
Yeah, so ChatGPT Atlas, I think it makes sense for them to build off Chromium. I know it would be nice if they just built their own web browser from scratch or forked Firefox or something, but I think that, the industry is kind of consolidating on Chromium, which is, I don't know, I have mixed feelings about that, but it is what it is. If I made a browser, I'd probably also fork Chromium and add my own features to it. But I tried it, and I think that it's a good start, and it has a lot of ambition, but it's not there yet. So the thing that is very exciting about the Atlas browser, as opposed to some of these other browsers like Dia, is with Dia, it's a browser that, which is made by the browser company. It can do things like summarize the page that you're on, and help you understand what you're looking at better. Whereas OpenAI will, it can do that, right? It can have context of the page that you're looking at, but it can also attempt to take actions similar to like a computer use model. So it will really try hard to navigate on whatever web page that you see and take actions on your behalf, which it's not there yet. I think it will be, but it's not there. So I tried a couple different things. The first thing I tried to do, and I tried to do things that I thought would be like doable, but a little bit challenging. So I've been trying to buy a server lately. I've been working on this project for a while, and I'm working on like the deployment, and I looking to rent a server, right? So I was looking at Hetzner, and Hetzner. So for those who don't know, Hetzner is like a cloud service provider that's very cost efficient, based out of Germany, and they have the ability where you can go and rent one of their old servers. And they have maybe a few thousand servers that you can go and rent. And I was like, okay, this seems like a perfect use case for Atlas. I want one, and I know what I need. Here, I told ChatGPT, like, hey, this is my use case. This is the type of server that I'd like. And I'd like you to go search through this list of 1,000 and find the best one for me. And it worked okay. So there was pagination where there was, I think like there was 1,000 or so servers that you could get, but each one needed to be filtered through on each page, right? So it's like each page maybe had 10 or 20 servers, and then you had to like click on the next button to look at the next server, like the next 20 set of servers. And you also needed to go through and filter the servers that you wanted. So I said like, hey, like I want an AMD based Linux server. And it tried. I think it was able to hit the tick box to say like search for AMD, but other than that, like it wasn't able to like sort by price. It wasn't able to click on the next button to go to the next page. It wasn't able to play around with the filters. Like it ended up filtering too much, and it couldn't. So it got no results, and then it was struggling to figure out how to like undo the filters so it could see more results. And it really looked like somebody who just like had never used a computer before, like trying to like flail around and use a browser. It's just like it feels like the concept is there, but it's just not there yet. But I don't know. Give it like 6 months, a year. I think it will be there, and it'll probably be faster, more efficient than us. But at this point, at this moment in October 30th, 2025, not there yet, but exciting.
Yeah. I think it's only going to get better from here, but yeah, I agree. I've been trying it a little bit as well. It can't even take actions for me. Maybe I'm on an older versions. But the last time I tried it, I told it to click something for me and I couldn't. So like,
Yeah, so
okay.
it doesn't click by default. You need to enable some permissions for it able to see that. So it should like prompt you if you prod it enough. It will be able to take the actions. And also like weirdly, it seems like there's some security issues that I kept on running into where it seemed like it wasn't always able to see every single screen that I was on. I don't quite understand like how that happens, because it's like I'm looking at it, like I can see it, but sometimes like it seems like the agent can't always see every screen. I don't know if like you need to like specifically allow it to see something. I don't know if there's some sort of like list that you need to add like each page to. There might be some configuration that I didn't quite do correctly, but it's something that like I want to play around with more and use it, because I think that this type of a thing would be excellent for like programming and like doing research, right? Because oftentimes like research involves like clicking through a bunch of web pages. Let's say you're going to try to buy a car, right? And you want to find the best price on a Tesla. Like you're not always necessarily going to find that white 2024 Tesla on the first website that you search. You might need to search like, 10 different car sites and a bunch of random dealer sites to find like that exact car for you. And I think that if this works well, this might be like the perfect thing to go and like, sift through all of these different websites that maybe you have logins to, and then find that perfect thing for you. That's where I want to see it. Like, I want to just say like, hey, find me the best, insert whatever product here for me. And then it'll just like scour the internet, look at all the reviews and find it.
Speaking of helping you code, one of our favorite code editors, AI supercharged editors, Cursor, just announced that they released their own custom model, which is 4x faster than the state-of-the-art frontier models. So Cursor, for those of you who don't know, is I think one of the most popular AI products, apart from ChatGPT. It is an AI-powered code editor, which allows you to just talk to it and have it suggest code changes, and now do agentic coding for you. So I've been using both at work. We have a bunch of other tools at Google, and independently for side projects, Cursor. And I've been finding myself relying on the LLM more and more, and just being kind of like a manager managing multiple tabs and multiple AI agents, handling features for me. I've also been relying on async agents. We have one at Google called Jules, which will take your own code base. They have their own VM, run it, make changes, fix errors, and then submit a pull request in your GitHub project. So Cursor has been working on their own model. And we've talked a little bit about the pros and cons of fine-tuning versus using an existing off-the-shelf model. And I think this is one of the rare use cases where you need to be the size of like a company like Cursor, which is I think valued at like $10 billion right now. They've raised hundreds of millions of dollars, and they're one of the few companies for which it makes sense, even though they're not a frontier model developer, it makes sense for them to train their own model to get benefits on top of existing models. So for them specifically, they are benefiting from their agentic use case, which means they need to call the model over and over again, maybe on the same context. And speed is like a big concern. And I know they've had a couple different partnerships with infrastructure companies. So maybe they have some specialized model running on some specialized hardware. I'm not entirely sure, but it seems like this is a win. They have 4x performance at a similar quality. So seems pretty cool.
Yeah, it seems like Cursor is really leaning into the agentic coding. So in their new update, they make it where the agents are kind of front and center, and the code is now almost like in the legacy mode. So I think they want to make it where you are just controlling your little team of AI agents, and the agents figure out the details of the code, and you just run it and are acting as like QA and project manager, and like the actual details of how it's made. I think they want that to still be there. So if you are a programmer, you really are particular about the code, like you can go and tweak it to your heart's desire. But like I think that they want it to be just like that code to just fall away. You don't have to worry about the details. The agents will handle the details, and you just like keep on telling what to do. So it's cool. And I also think that I'm with you. The Cursor has a huge need for their own model. Now, I think most people, like 99% of the people listening to this, do not have a need to make your own base model. But Cursor, I think, has a pretty good reason to do so. So like I've been using Cursor heavily, and you can look at the usage to see like how much it costs to use a particular LLM request on Cursor. And I think, well, I actually upgraded now to the $60 a month plan, and I may upgrade to the $200 a month plan later because I've been still like burning through a lot of the credits because I've been using it so heavily. But I remember when I was on the $20 a month plan, I think they gave me about like $80 or $100 worth of actual AI credit value. And then like after like $100, they're like, all right, you really should probably upgrade now, or we're gonna cut you off. I'm like, all right, fine, that's fair. I got, my fill. I'm gonna upgrade. And Cursor, like they have a lot of people using them for so much code. And I think that they have a lot of training data. They have lots of code that they can leverage, and they have like a very particular use case. So yeah, I think either them making their own foundation model like from scratch, or just like fine tune another one, really makes a lot of sense for them. And they have the money to actually do that, and it'll probably save them money in the long run. So their auto mode in Cursor, where they just like automatically select the model for you, is getting better and better and better. And honestly, like I've been using it for like a few months now, ever since like we had that vibe coding uh podcast where like we went deep into it. I've been, full into Cursor, and I don't know how to go back from it. Like I'm so much more efficient now that I use it. It's just incredible. So good on you, Cursor, for making it a new base model. Makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. On the topic of valuations and funding rounds, because we've been talking about that a lot this episode. I'm looking at an announcement where they shared they were worth 9.9 billion. Another announcement where someone invested at close to an 18 billion, and then a more recent announcement where they're reportedly worth 30 billion, all within the course of like 6 months this year. So it seems like they're also on this rocket ship trajectory, and it's not surprising. Honestly, if I had the opportunity, I would invest in Cursor. 30 seems like a lot, but I think it is one of the most beloved tools for software engineers today. And they're kind of like the OpenAI of coding, if I had to give an analogy, or the Nvidia of chips.
Yeah, that's true. I don't know how I feel about the valuation. I think Cursor is a good company. I think that their product is also excellent, but I also kind of feel like Cursor to me is one of the products that I think could be I wouldn't say easily replaced, but um I think that there's a lot of competition, and people could be coming for them. So like I don't know, like the fact that like, I just don't know exactly what moat Cursor has. I guess that's like the main concern that I have, right? Because like Cursor is just a fork of VS Code, which is the open source ID or like text editor for Microsoft, right? With some AI features baked on, and like the AI features are good, but I think that it wouldn't be that hard to go and make another like equally good competitor to Cursor, and people may just move off. So I don't think that they have like enough market penetration yet where they're safe forever, right? Because I think that certain products are fairly sticky where it's challenging to move off, right? Like there is a moat. So for example, if I use AWS or GCP for my cloud, and I'm an enterprise, like it's very challenging for me to migrate all my data over to another cloud. That's I mean it's doable, but it's hard, right? But if I'm a developer and all I need to do is just like download a different text editor that like does AI stuff, like it's not a challenging thing to switch. So I think that right now they're top dog and they're very beloved in the developer community, but I don't exactly know what moat they have that will make sure they have a stay in business in 10 years. I think that like if any company can do it, it's them. It seems like they are building fast, and I'm sure they will probably increase the moat over time. But I think like that moat isn't quite there just yet. I don't know. Maybe you disagree, but I just feel like it's not quite there yet.
Yeah, I think the topic of moats has been discussed a lot in this AI ecosystem because it's hard. It's hard to build a moat. Everyone is building similar things, and there've been a lot of investors, founders, and people who talk about AI write about the fact that building a moat in AI is hard, and maybe that's not even a useful question to ask because I I don't think it's the it's something to get hung up on because they're providing us so much value today and growing at such a speed that just like OpenAI, they talked about they don't need a moat. Their execution is the moat. They just keep building faster than anyone else. And maybe that leads to, the 99 fixed work culture or burnt out employees. You keep churning through fresh grads or eventually just, replace everyone with AI. Maybe that is the future. But a lot of people are talking about how I don't think it matters if you have a mode. We're on this trajectory to AGI. It's just about who can get there first, maybe. And also on the topic of just forking VS Code. Maybe it was my bad because I started off this episode with talking about Atlas and how they just forked Chromium. And yes, we had a similar discussion a few episodes ago where we said we talked about the derogatory term wrapper and how people were criticized for building ChatGPT wrappers and questioned about whether or not that's a sustainable business model. But there have been uh, companies with double-digit billions of dollars of market cap that are just wrappers around AWS. And similarly, I think OpenAI is building just another fork of Chromium, and Cursor is building just another fork of VS Code, but they're adding a substantial amount of value. I think if there was another company that was able to perform just as good, developers would be willing to switch. But so far, Cursor is the best because they've invested a lot. They have a lot of users, and so they're able to collect a lot of data to build really good models. Their fine details around the user experience is fantastic. Like the tab autocomplete is the best in Cursor compared to any other product. It's just so seamless. So they've worked on the performance of their own proprietary models too, and that is a real moat. It's feasible for someone to build their own model, but it's not trivial and it's not easy. You need to be the size of like a $10 billion plus company to think about building a competitive custom model that can code just as well as some of these frontier models. So I don't know. I think they're doing a pretty good job despite the concern that someone else could come along and copy it. I don't think it would be as easy. And by that time, Cursor might have released even more compelling features.
Oh, well, Cursor could be the company that actually is the one to implement a full true AGI because they are leaning into the agents, the autonomous agents, and like some sort of like coding AGI, right? Like I know they're not like a research lab, right? But they are dealing with writing more code than probably any company on earth at this moment. Just because like people are putting their source code into it, and they have so much data on what code that people accept that I don't know. Like if AGI is just a programming problem, and if Cursor is getting better and better at solving programming problems, here's a dark horse prediction. Cursor is the company that actually is the one that achieves AGI.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can get behind that one because I think AGI would require a lot more than just code. Real world understanding. I would bet more on these robotic companies, which have real world understanding, more than coding specific companies.
Yeah, I mean, you're probably right, but I don't know. It is something to think about. Maybe next year we'll see the cursor robot coming out.
That would be a wild reality. Although crazier
Yeah.
things about.
But anyways, I think that's pretty much all the topics we had. I don't know. Do you have anything else you want to discuss?
No, that was everything.
All right, wonderful. Well, everybody, thank you so much for listening. I know it's been a while. Shashank and I have been doing a lot of traveling, so it's been a bit of a hiatus, but thank you again for subscribing, and we'll try to maybe get on a regular schedule, but both of us are still doing a lot of bopping around. So, Shashank, you're out of the country for the next like few months, I think, and I'm also going to be doing quite some traveling. So, we record these episodes when we can. But yeah, appreciate again you for listening, and if you can, we're trying to grow. So, it would be wonderful if you could like leave some comments on the YouTube. Like leave a review in Apple Podcast, like the videos, and ask a question. Yeah. Other than that, thanks again, and we'll catch you in the next one.